Are you ready for Rishi? Rishi Sunak is the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and we here on House of Commentary have got some thoughts and feelings about this.
Absolutely. I must admit, for a second, I thought you were going to say the King's going to have a busy day tomorrow.
Charles has got to do something.
Yeah. Well, as long as there aren't any protesters throwing cakes in his face, as they were today at Madame Tussauds.
I think with the recent tradition of what happens after new PM's elected, Charles is probably hiding tomorrow.
Yes.
Might come out in a hazmat suit to shake his hand.
Absolutely, yeah. It's quite. It's a worrying time for some people. So, Mr. Sunak has made the grade, apparently.
So oh man, there's so
we
many
should
things
do a
to
little
talk
recap.
about.
We should do. It's been a very stressful day today, to be honest. I've been watching the
Stressful.
thing. It has. The whole thing, the way it planned out, I thought it was quite stressful.
I thought we were going to get a week's worth of drama rather than just 24 hours.
You know this great match that happened yesterday, India and Pakistan, where the whole of cricket was displayed in the last over of the game. All of politics has been displayed in the last 24 hours. It seems to me. All the different permutations, combinations, everybody come up with 1,000,001 theories about what should happen next. And everybody thinking they know the answer.
And similar to the India-Pakistan game, the outcome was the same as everyone thought
What
from the
it was gonna
beginning.
That's right.
Which is that Rishi Sunak is the guy for the job, as it turns out.
It is.
I mean,
exactly.
Did we really think Boris was going to come back? I thought there was a chance.
I thought, to be honest, there was a part of me that was agreeing with those people who said if he gets over 100 votes, he's going to go for it. And
he did get over 100
He
votes.
did. He got 102 apparently.
But he didn't go for it.
He didn't go for it. And I think he did the right thing. I think a lot of people went up to him and said, come on, mate. You can't just go in there and spoil the party. This is 2 years of agony.
If you come back, yeah.
In fact, the worst thing was that I think a lot of people must have been thinking, okay, he becomes Prime Minister, i.e. Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister, and within a month, he'll be voted
out again. He'll be out again. And he's still under investigation.
That's part of that investigation, yeah. Within a month, he'll be out, because a lot of the Tory MPs were saying that they're going to lose the next election if he comes in, and they'd rather go out with their reputations intact than go out looking incredibly corrupt, because they would have had to vote to stay to keep him in. And
it's a difficult one.
Isn't it?
I don't think Boris had a leg to stand on, to be honest, coming back. And then you got Penny Mordaunt. She was the other main candidate.
She was the only one, because she came third in the original.
That's it. And she's basically realised that she's not got a leg to stand on either. I don't think people supported her.
Yeah, I think she genuinely thought, when she started, she thought, you know what, I got 100+ votes last time round. Liz Truss is now not there. She can't steal any votes from me. I'm going to get all of those votes. And then Boris turns up out of the blue, and she's like, bloody hell. Now there was me thinking I'm going to have a straight path to victory. Boris comes in, steals all her votes. But the strange thing is, when he pulled out, a lot of those votes went to Rishi Sunak.
That's it, yeah.
A lot of those votes went to Rishi Sunak.
I think enough people knew. In a weird way, Rishi Sunak has really benefited from Liz Truss's trying and failing, because her economic policy not working just meant that his economic policy looked so much stronger.
Yeah.
It wasn't like speculation anymore.
That's right.
So everyone kind of felt, okay, we have to literally do a complete U-turn and do what he said.
Yeah.
So he's the man for the job, and also he knows stuff about money, which
helps.
Mordaunt's not perceived to know stuff about money.
In fact, it was quite funny. I saw this thing where a person actually said, imagine you're an owner of a big company and you're looking for a CEO, and you've got two candidates. Got one candidate, Penny Mordaunt, went to university, Reading University, got her 2-1 in public relations or whatever it was, or reading some of the arts, went into public relations, and that was it. Whereas you got this other guy, went to Winchester, one of the top schools in the country, went to Oxford, got a first, then on a scholarship,
Stanford.
Went to Stanford. Was it Stanford?
Stanford.
Right. got his degree there. Then he went into investment banking. Went to Goldman Sachs, and then he helped set up another investment organization, made his millions.
And married into millions.
And married into billions.
Married into billions.
And who would you choose to run your company? I mean, it's rather obvious, isn't it?
It's very hard to compare them.
Yeah, it's very hard.
On the CV. And he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
And he was at a time when you had to have a good Chancellor of the Exchequer.
That's it,
You had to have a good Chancellor of the Exchequer. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, but when they get things right, it means a lot. And I think he got a lot of stuff right. By the way, you're going to hear fireworks in the background.
Yeah,
these are not celebrating Rishi Sunak. Although maybe they are. Who knows?
I thought it was actually the UK going to pot. It's either fireworks for Diwali or it's the apocalypse outside. We haven't decided yet. We'll see what happens when we finish the podcast.
That's right. But for those who
might be our economy. Who knows?
And for those who are listening from India and from around the world, happy Diwali.
Yeah, and there's at least one of you. We know this.
Yes, at least one of you. Exactly.
So to you, happy Diwali. What do we think about Rishi Sunak? I think he is literally a robotic man. You know, I thought he had personality because he had disappeared for 6 weeks. But when I saw his speech today, I literally thought the last 6 weeks must have been him cloning himself and turning himself into an android. Because he really does have the most monotonous... I don't know if he is...
Let me give you...
Do you think they get a sat-nav and he goes... They say, copy the sat-nav, Rishi?
No, what happened was, first of all, I'll give some background to what happened, okay? So, up until about 5 minutes or 3 minutes to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Penny Mordaunt was still going to be putting her name forward. And literally 2 minutes before, she withdrew. I think she fell short by a handful of votes. So Rishi Sunak then, being the only person in the race, won by default. He then gave a speech a half hour later to the Conservative MPs in the private hall or room or whatever it was. He then actually went to the Conservative headquarters in London, which is near Downing Street. It's not too far from there. And they set a lectern up, they set up a stage and all the rest of it. And then nothing worked. Literally nothing was working. All the TV crews were there and they were saying, look, nothing's working here. Tell the people who are the commentators to just talk. And eventually they got the sound working. I think what happened was, first of all, there were no pictures and sound. Then there were pictures but no sound. And then eventually the sound came on. And I think he was talking from an auto cue.
This does not sound like how you should start a prime ministership.
I know. I think he was just talking from an auto cue. And he came across so robotic.
I mean, it's almost like a Liz Truss.
He came across like a bit
what
like
is he talking about?
Yeah.
I really don't understand. I mean...
And it's a very short speech.
But he's trying to be that guy who's very, respectful towards his predecessor and all that.
You can't suddenly start dissing people like straight away.
You should.
No, but
look at the crap she put us through. I know.
But he
should have stood there and showed some emotion and said, "Thank God, guys. Thank God you lot saw some sense and picked me." Because look what she did to the economy.
I know.
Like, we nearly drew with the dollar.
I know.
It was 1 to 1.05. What
So
madness is that?
Yeah, it's really
Interest
ridiculous.
rates to 7%. What's going on?
I think you've got lower than that 1.05. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But I think he's let all his supporters do that.
Should have said it himself. I still think he should have just been himself and just said exactly what he felt.
No. I tell you what was really funny.
Sort of stuff like, "Thank you, Liz Truss, for carrying out your role with the humility and whatever else he said."
I know.
What the hell are you talking about, mate?
Humility and integrity. But one of the funny things...
He should have just said, "I never want to see your face again."
Yeah, goodbye. That's the exit.
That's it.
No, but the other thing was, when he was when he won the leadership vote, effectively being the only person standing, Labour came out with a statement. The deputy leader of the Labour Party came out with a statement, having a real go at him for talking to the MPs first and not the nation. She said he should be talking to the nation first, MPs second. And no one told her that he's not yet PM. Because he's not PM until the King Charles himself says. So it's really, really funny. It does make you wonder.
Just the minor details.
Yeah, but it shows how little some of these people actually understand their own, the things that they're trying to get into.
So now the question is, do we think he's going to do a good job? And do we think the nation will accept him?
That's a good question. I mean, both of those are good questions. Dealing with the second part about a good job, dealing with that one first. I think everybody is hopeful, and I'm pretty sure everybody has got fingers and toes crossed because everybody knows it's going to be tough. It was going to be tough anyway. I mean, this is one of the things that people forget.
Yeah.
It was going to be tough anyway. Liz Truss totally messed it up. Okay. But the problems are still there. The problems are still there.
I think people deep in their hearts know we're not getting a general election.
Oh, wait, he's already said that. He's already said no general election.
Which means that we're stuck with him, which means we have to hope that he does well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the other aspect of it is that people, he said a lot of this during the summer, wasn't it? He talked about how things are going to get hard, inflation starts hitting everybody really badly, and it's very hard to control inflation because you don't really have many levers. He mentioned it in terms of levers. He said there's only either you increase taxes or you actually reduce public expenditure. He said basically that's what it came down to.
And there's $70 billion worth of £70 billion worth of, actually, I think.
70
no,
billion.
They're different. They're the same now anyway. But it's 70 billion worth of black hole funds that we basically have to.
No,
replace.
but they've already got that down to about 30 or 25.
No,
or whatever it was.
it's 70. It's 70.
Really? I thought
as
they got that
of
down.
today, it's 70 estimated.
Right.
Well, so we're going to have to cut all healthcare for about 50 years.
No. Well, no. And the budget for healthcare is about 50 billion.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
No, I think the big question is going to be where are the cuts going to be made? Because there have to be cuts.
I think it's going to be the police.
And I don't think so. I think
it's always the police.
I have a feeling
it's healthcare that the police, but because doctors are already thinking about striking, I think it will be the police.
I don't think
first.
it will be. I have a feeling they're going to try to not implement too many cuts.
They will.
I think what they're going to do is, I think they'll try to sort out the energy problem first. Or they're going to do something about energy. I can see them trying to do something like that. Maybe restrict it further.
Hasn't Truss tied us in with the energy anyway?
No, she hasn't. What happened was that she basically gave a stupid blank check to all the energy companies for 2 years. Okay, that's what frightened everybody. Think about it, a blank check.
So has that not gone through? Or?
That hasn't gone through yet. It hasn't been voted on, has it?
Okay.
So still it can be looked at. So what Hunt said was we need to reduce that to 6 months for people.
That's still too long.
It is a long time, and actually I can imagine that what might happen is Sunak will come in and he can then say, look,
he should just say scrap it.
He can't say scrap it because you need it, but he'll say, right, only to people who have homes of this size or salaries of this much.
Yeah, it has to be
so
really. It has to be
targeted.
Really stringent.
It has to be better targeted, which is what one of the good things.
I think we will see cuts. I think it will be on a council level or whatever it is. I think there'll be either generalised cuts or there'll be specific cuts.
I don't
like police and stuff like that. I can't see in a country where we've already got train drivers striking. We've got nurses thinking about striking. We've got doctors thinking about striking. All
the
within
public
the next
servants.
4 months.
And then they're all. But the problem is they're all asking for 10% increases, which is a killer.
Yeah, but
this is the problem.
But I don't blame them for asking. Actually, they're asking for like 20%. Some of them.
Really? Oh my god! But the reality is, in the private sector, nobody's getting those sort of increases. So
yeah, but the private sector has been getting increases. The difference is that the public sector are asking for pay restoration after decades of cuts.
Yeah, I mean,
so because they have frozen pay for year upon year upon year, they haven't got any. So private sector, even if they get 0.5% over 10 years, per year, they're still getting 5% increase. Whereas public sector is having a real terms cut of 20% over 10 years. That's what they're asking for restoration.
Yeah, well,
so I can understand why there's difference there.
I think that in the private
and also private sector they get bonuses and all this.
Not everybody does though. But in the private sector, those people on good salaries and good jobs are getting significant increases. But that's not everybody. That's actually a very small part of all the people in the private sector.
Yeah, I think we should actually keep that for another episode. We can talk about all this, pay restoration, strikes, and. Yeah.
But all I'm highlighting is
it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, all I'm highlighting is this demand for a significant increase at a time when the money isn't there. Basically, is going to be really tough. And I think what I would expect him to do, and what I'm hoping he does, is they focus on getting inflation down. At the moment, it was reported 10% for September. One of the things, if they get the
It's 7% now.
no, but if they get this energy planned in properly, they reckon it can knock up another 3-4%. So if they can do that, that will then bring inflation down to a
10%.
sensible level, down from 10 to say 5. If they bring it down to 5, then it's up to the bank.
It depends what interest rates are as well.
Yeah. The Bank of England will then implement the 1% increase that it should have done last month.
Right.
All right.
I think probably the interest rates is going to be what kills people rather than inflation.
Well, yeah, but only 11 million people in the UK have a mortgage.
It's the people who are borrowing. But people borrow for more than just a mortgage. People
But people on credit cards are going to get hammered.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think
cards.
people who are borrowing, I think it will be the interest rates, not inflation, that kills people.
It's going to be tough. What do you think about who do you think is going to be choosing for his cabinet? One of the main jobs.
Jeremy Hunt's not moving.
No.
That guy's there.
He's there.
He's reversed the Liz Truss plan. He's done everything he needs to do for the next 12 months because now he just needs to say, Rishi, what do I need to do next?
Yeah,
and Rishi will tell him.
Yeah.
And he'll just sit there. And I don't see him being replaced, if I'm honest, unless he's got a real, hard line on some policy that we didn't know about. But
I don't think he will.
He's the sort of person who's just happy to sit in his position and add it to his CV. I don't see him as someone who's hard line on anything.
Exactly, and also he knows he's never going to be leader. He's never going to be PM. He's already said, "I'm never going to be a leader."
He'll only be PM in a decade's time, 2 decades' time, when he's older.
He rolled himself out basically. He gave a thing because he's 3 times now.
Well, he also adopted the same economic policies as Truss when he ran.
Really?
Yes, he had a very similar policy. He wasn't sitting there doing the Sunak plan. He only U-turned because he saw Kwasi Kwarteng go downhill.
Yeah.
When you see your best mate is shot in the head, you don't start running in the same direction.
Exactly. So he's going to be there. I'll be very surprised if the person who replaced Braverman, Grant Shapps, is removed because he's only been there less than a week,
and he's quite well respected in the Conservative Party.
And also he's had ministerial positions, so it's not like he doesn't know.
Yeah.
The other thing about that was quite interesting, actually. The other thing about that particular role, Grant Shapps, when he was actually in Boris Johnson's cabinet, he was regarded as the best communicator of all the different ministers.
Interesting.
So it's interesting that a person who has a reputation of being able to communicate well is now in charge of the Home Office. That could be really interesting because he's going to have to deal with a lot of crap. If you actually think about all the stuff he's got to deal with, all these protesters, climate change protesters, the oil protesters, and so on and so on, that's going to be a big deal. I think over the next 3 months, there's going to be a lot of people are going to try to use this next 3 months to really upset the environment in terms of the social environment by having lots of strikes and lots of strife. And I think dealing with that is not going to be easy. Not going to be easy. It's going to be very, very hard.
What about our health minister?
It can't be
Theresa Coffey.
The guy who smoked. This is Liz Truss' best mate.
She smokes.
She smokes. She's a smoker, overweight, and all the rest of it. And it's quite funny because
she's also the deputy PM, which I didn't know about.
Yeah, she had both roles. Yeah, she had both roles. So
what the hell?
Well, no, you're allowed to be deputy prime minister and have a role.
Have you seen her?
It's just that I know. Describe her. Remember, people are listening to this still haven't seen any pictures.
How do I put it lightly? She looks like the Trunchable. If any of you want to watch Matilda coming out soon, she really looks like a shot putter.
Matilda's nemesis.
I don't know, but oh gosh, I didn't even know this was a person.
Yeah,
it shows how crazy things have been under Truss.
Yeah. She did.
Wow.
I think she had another ministry of it.
My God, her salary is 143 grand a year.
Really? For Minister of...
So Wikipedia says.
What, for Minister of Health?
Wikipedia knows all.
Wow. That's more than the Prime Minister gets, though.
No. The Prime Minister gets marginally more than that.
Is it?
She's probably getting paid for both of her jobs, Deputy PM and Health Secretary.
She's almost certainly getting paid for both.
She's a bit browner than Rishi Sunak. She did 2 jobs at the same time.
Yeah, it's a bit like Angela Rayner, isn't it? Who's deputy leader of the Labour Party. She's got about 5 different jobs and gets 5 different salaries or something stupid.
This is how they play the system.
I don't know if it's 5, but it's definitely more than 1.
I've just seen Rishi Sunak. If anyone's looking at Wikipedia, there's some great stuff on Wikipedia. Rishi Sunak, forget looking at his history and all that. We've told you all that. Just go on Wikipedia and have a look at his signature, because it looks like a 3-year-old with a crayon in his hand, holding it like a dagger, trying to figure out how to write English for the first time. He really looks like he could be a GP or something with that signature.
Oh, that's a GP signature, isn't it? That's a GP.
It's one of those ones where you say, medical legally, I need to prove that I couldn't have written this as an adult.
So anyway, Minister of Health. That's a tough one. That's because the Ministry of Health, the Health Department of Health, is going to go through a tough time. You got.
I reckon Sergeant's coming back.
Really?
I think Mr. Jarvin's coming straight back into his position.
I tell you something. That's a good shout.
Who else? I mean, he's done it before. He resigned before Rishi.
Yeah.
Him and Rishi have worked together before. Coffee looks like she needs a coffee. So Jarvin's coming back.
That's a good shout. I hadn't thought about that one. That is a good shout, because he's already familiar. He's only been away for about 6 months. So, and he was the one who was putting that plan in for winter, wasn't he?
That's it. Yeah.
He was the one who was behind the winter plan. So
I think he's got.
Could work.
I think he's got the inroads to it. I think he knows the people.
Yeah.
Priti Patel's not coming back. I tell you that. I hope she's not.
I don't think she would. I don't think she would. I do think that Foreign Secretary Cleverly.
That's going to be Priti Patel.
I tell you something.
Maybe she comes back.
No, not after what happened when she was international minister or whatever it's called.
I'll tell you what.
National Aid or whatever.
If there's anything you need to know about the UK, Secretary of Foreign Affairs, or Secretary of Foreign Affairs is a title given to people who make mistake after mistake after mistake.
Yeah.
They don't literally know nothing about how to deal with international situations. Boris cocked it up for God knows how many years. Still became Prime Minister. Liz Truss cocked it up for God how many years. Still became Prime Minister. Everyone who does that cocks it up. Yeah, they all cock it up for years upon years. And if you fail that job, it's only proof that you'll be a great Prime Minister, or you'll end up Prime Minister at some point.
Yeah. You've probably seen so many fellows around the world as well. You've probably worked out, well, I can do the job there.
Everyone thinks, you'll be able to sit around a table with other world leaders because you're Foreign Secretary.
Exactly.
What happens? You don't know how to do it.
I have a feeling.
Sit there shaking hands with
just
people.
Going back to who I think, it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't change anything there for the time being.
Who is that at the moment?
James Cleverly. Okay. I think it's James Cleverly.
Sounds like a footballer.
I think it's
James Cleverly's a footballer.
I know his surname is Cleverly. He's an ex-military man, and because of Ukraine, I can imagine.
You're right.
And we're effectively at an economic war at the moment, isn't it? That's going on. I think that you have to almost combine the military with the foreign, with the whole concept.
He's an Army Reserve officer.
No, he wasn't actually in the army.
Let me check.
Now he's a reserve officer, but he did serve.
He probably pitches himself as himself being in the army. Let's have a look and make sure. Okay, military service. He was commissioned into the Territorial Army as a second lieutenant on probation.
Okay, so he's a part of the Territorial Army.
In January 1993, his commission was confirmed and he was made a substantive second lieutenant. He was promoted to lieutenant and then captain and then major. Okay, he's got some titles. Until 2005, he was a battery commander of 266, Battery of Royal Artillery Volunteers. Cleverly was promoted to lieutenant colonel on the 1st of March 2015. Right. And that shows why he's got no experience in politics, because he's been doing the army for his whole life. 7 years in politics, and he's already got a Secretary of Foreign Affairs, and he's already Secretary of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah, it's a bit like he's a Foreign Secretary. Yeah, so it's a bit like Penny Mordaunt, who's she comes from a Navy family, but her actual service is in the reserves of the Navy. It's not actually in the Navy. It's proper. Although you could argue that is Navy proper. But anyway, I think he'll stay with. I think the Defence Minister will stay as it.
I've listened to this James Cleverly guy before, and actually, he's not a complete idiot.
No,
I have listened to him. I don't know if his skills are as transferable as we think they are.
That's true.
Because it's very possible that he sits next to Vladimir Putin and goes, "You right, mate? Do you want to have some tea. He goes, did you
I
forget
thi-
what we put in your tea?
I tell you one of the things about him, and this we
you
talk
forget
about.
what Russians put in tea.
I think yes. I think one of the things about Rishi is that in being PM, he's going to need people around him who to toe the line when it comes to giving the message. James cleverly always toes the line. There have been times, even with the Liz Truss thing, there were times when he knew the answer was she's been a dumbass, okay, but he made it. He just toed the line, said everything was fine, it would be fine, etc., etc. And I think you need that in some of these jobs.
Yeah, you do have to be a bit careful. The only thing I worry about Sunak is that he's not really a strong leader. He doesn't come across like that anyway. The way that he speaks, the way that he portrays himself, he doesn't come across as someone who is able to stand their ground and not being walked over.
Well, it'd be hard to, but if he's been in investment banking, hopefully enough people have had a go at him.
But he looks like that guy who's a really good advisor. He doesn't look like that guy that I'll never look at him and go, wow, like he's really setting a standard.
No, I think he sets the standard.
I think he's someone
how hard does he fight?
He's that guy. It's the same as he said before when they say, you know, the standard question they ask of the hustings, which is like, what's your greatest weakness? And his greatest weakness was, I'm too analytical and sometimes I really overthink things and then I have to spend my time and I don't act really quickly. Sometimes as a leader, that's exactly what you need. You need someone who goes, this is my instinct, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. That's what Boris is like, isn't it? Boris is
like that,
that.
Boris is like that. And
he doesn't do the analysis part. He just goes gut instinct.
Yeah, and he does think about stuff, but the thing with Boris is a bit too gung-ho.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, at the time that we had him in COVID, we were the country. We were the country that made split decisions, and they tended to be right.
Yeah, same thing with Ukraine. You think about Ukraine; he was the first one to go in and say, "Right, we're going to support you."
And he did. It's not like he did everything right. Obviously, he did a lot wrong.
Exactly.
But the general trend was that he did more
the big calls.
Positive than negative with the big calls.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that I worry about Sunak, is that he's going to be sitting there going, "Let's just see what the other countries do first."
Oh, I don't think he'll do that.
Or he'll sit there and he'll say, "Give me more data, give me more data, give me more data."
That I can imagine.
And then by the time we've got all this data, stuff has changed anyway.
Yeah, but I think that as a person involved in investments, you've got to use some. You've got to be good with numbers, good with having an idea of how trends are, but also you've got to have some good instincts. Otherwise, you mess up big time.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to say no to people who are advisors around you. That's what I think Rishi's gonna actually Rishi, God, we're on a first name basis now. He's like my best friend or something.
Yeah,
this is what I think Sunak will struggle
next door.
with. I think this is what Sunak will struggle with, is that I think he's gonna have to learn how to not just rely on his advisors. He's gonna have to take on board what people say, because everyone in that there's a toxic environment, politics, where everyone thinks they're right about everything.
Yeah, that's right.
So Foreign Secretary comes to you, he's like, okay, I used to be in the army, I'm a major general, and I'm going to say, this is what we should do about Ukraine. Yeah. And he's going to have to sit there and go, I don't know if I agree with you, mate. But he's going to have to say that to that guy.
It's interesting that you said that, because one of the big arguments that took place while Boris was PM, and this is what came out during the hustings during the summer, is that he had arguments with Ben Wallace, the Minister of Defence, because he was questioning, why do you need so much money and how are you going to spend it? It wasn't actually even the amount. He just wanted to know, how are you going to spend it? And they didn't like having to ask that question of how they're going to spend it. Yeah. So he's obviously he understands he has to ask those questions, but how many times do you ask it to the same person? How many times do you ask it of everybody? And right now, those are the questions that need to be asked of every single member of the cabinet, because every part of the government, they're going to try to cut back somewhere. Yeah. So that's going to be I think it's going to be hard for the MPs. This is the other thing, is that we're going into a phase of the UK economy where, because everyone is now accepted, we're going to have to do a U-turn on the economic policy, which was previously spend. Yeah. And now we're going to do a bit of cut, and hope that people start spending. MPs are now going to really fight for their regions and their people, and they're going to feel that even if they genuinely agree with Rishi's, I might call him Rishi again. I'm going to keep calling him Rishi. If they agree with Rishi's policy, which is basically we need to protect our economy by making necessary cutbacks where we need to make them and take a hit so future generations don't suffer, they will
also feel that every week they have to come out and fight and say, I want this for my place, and I want this for my people, and why aren't you doing this for me, and why aren't you doing this for public services? And there's a danger that a lot of the Conservative MPs are going to start sounding very much like the Labour MPs, and they're actually going to start sounding as if they don't agree with his plans. So
that's true. In fact,
because they want to get re-elected as well.
And one of the big questions, when you have this type of environment, I don't think anyone's seen any country introduce a levelling up agenda at the same time, because levelling up agenda is about spending money, big
That's
money.
It, yeah.
And if you're on the one hand, you're saying you're going to be cutting back, spending big money on big infrastructure projects. That's not an easy ask.
Yeah. So, with regards to do we think Rishi's going to be a good PM? I think it probably remains to be seen. We actually we do need to see him in action and see, can he make big calls? Will he crumble under pressure of Prime Minister's questions? Because he's not been given complex questions.
You haven't seen him,
which are embedded with people who already know what quips they're going to make when you say something.
Exactly.
And at the same time, we need to see if the Conservative Party actually stands behind him, because
I think they will.
I think they do
Initially
right now.
They will, yeah.
I think they do right now, but I think
how long for?
If you give it 3 months and it starts to get to December and people's bills are really still high and they're struggling with electricity at Christmas, and people are saying, well, it's Christmas time and I can't afford my electric bill, and I'm sitting in my house with my, all my coats on.
Yeah.
I think that when those stories start coming out from the Conservative MPs, I think that's when we start seeing.
That's when it will start to really.
Because the Conservatives inherently start backstabbing each other after 6 months anyway. It's what we've seen with this government, especially since Cameron. Every 6 months, they just start turning on each other, and then you're just fighting to keep your own place in the party.
That's
they're
right.
so.
That's right.
I don't know what's
it's
the. They're
feral.
so toxic.
It's almost feral, isn't it?
They're so toxic.
But I think that's because they've. The problem is when you've got binary answers, yes or no. That's what enables all this toxicity. There's no nuance, and as a result, it's hard to bring people even into a maybe situation.
They do need a party whip, and they need people to just be silent on issues. Actually,
well, think about it. Liz Truss tried that, and they both resigned.
Yeah, but in a weird way, they need the Conservative Party. Rishi needs to make the Conservative Party all stand in a line and say, we're going to get behind him and commit for 6 months. And they need to be honest with their own memberships and say, guys, we can't just go out every week and say we need this, we need that, because the whole point is we're making cuts and we're all going to feel it.
That's right.
And they need to be honest with the nation and say we're all going to feel it. And I think what the nation really is yearning for more than anything is honesty.
Yeah, agreed. I think there are going to be some interesting landmarks in the next 6 months. One is obviously this week, Friday, 31st October, Halloween. The big statement about what they're going to do in the terms of financial plan. That is followed almost a few days.
I think they might delay that.
I have a feeling they might delay it as well, but it's difficult to delay it. I think they'll have to. I think what they might do is.
I think it's really easy for them to say it's a transition period. Sunak's just come in. We didn't know that Truss was definitely going to resign. This was announced before Truss resigned. We've got a new government in place, and I think it's appropriate for us to delay it until we've got a little bit more forecast and information. Like I said, Sunak's an analytical guy. I don't think he's going to say, let's stick with the same timeline Truss had.
My instincts are that they're not going to delay it, because if they delay it, then it puts more pressure on the Bank of England to increase the interest rate even higher than maybe they would otherwise do. So it's almost like the Bank of England needs to have a plan,
but at the same time,
be able to say we only have to increase by 0.25% or 0.5% or 0.75%.
But at the same time, with how volatile the economy has been recently, they know they need to get that plan right. So because they know that if they say one line wrong in that plan,
it's difficult. It's a difficult one.
That's it for them. And the problem is just like Liz Truss, even if all this, everyone believes in Sunak right now because he said the opposite to Liz Truss before, if he starts on the wrong foot and says the wrong thing again, no one's going to have confidence in it.
I think he's going to be ultra cautious.
And that's why I think they'll delay it.
Yeah, I think he'll be ultra cautious. I'm not convinced about the delaying, but I think in terms of what he tries to achieve, it'll be ultra cautious to help the Bank of England. However,
how's he going to sort it out in 7 days?
It's impossible. It's very hard. It's very hard. However, so you've got the Bank of England, you've got first of all, the plan has to be announced, which may get delayed. You've got the Bank of England, I think November the 4th or whenever it is, first week of November, they've got to say what they can do with the interest rates. And then one of the big question marks is going to be, are they going to increase benefits in line with inflation? Are they going to maintain the triple lock for pensioners?
No chance.
And I'll tell you something.
No chance.
I think they will increase the benefits, but I have a feeling they'll say the increase to the pensions is going to be a lot lower, because he did that. He actually did that during the pandemic. I don't know if you remember, but the inflation rate went silly during the pandemic, and he just said, "Look, if people aren't working, we have no right to suddenly just allow this triple
in the
lock to
weirdest
take
way,
place."
for the most timid guy, he's not actually afraid to make big decisions and just cut things if he needs to.
That's right.
Because he knows that
he's done it
he
before.
has to do it. Yeah.
He's got no choice.
He knows that it doesn't really matter. He's thinking about the big scheme, not about the individual person on the street.
Yeah.
Which is hard in the middle of a cost of living crisis, because people are suffering. So
those are going to be big.
Yeah.
And then they're going into Christmas. They're going to pray that everybody has a good Christmas in terms of business. But then the next big one is going to be in April, when they do the proper budget for the year.
That's miles away.
Yeah,
that's miles away.
Months.
So this is how he has to survive.
Yeah,
he just has to keep the Conservative Party from becoming toxic until April.
The thing is, though, that Jeremy Hunt has actually delayed he's introduced this review that reports in January about what to do about energy. So January now becomes a really intense period of what do you do about the cost of energy. So he's got loads on his plate.
Yeah, I think with
and
Boris,
we haven't even talked about other stuff.
This is the thing. So we've got to be really careful now, because he's already got a lot on his plate, as you said.
Yeah.
And then you know what the prime ministership is like, is you're just going to get another big issue come out of you from left field.
I think it's the loneliest.
From way out of left field, another big issue will come out. So he's coming into office now, and he's thinking it's all about the economy. The whole nation thinks it's all about the economy. We've completely forgotten that we've just put Ukraine on a back burner.
That's right.
As soon as something happens at Christmas, we're still potentially going to end up in a war.
That is correct.
So there's a lot that can just come out of left field, and I know Nicola Sturgeon's sitting in Scotland and thinking, I'm going to bring up this independence thing again. 1,000%
she doesn't talk
She's
about
already
anything
calling
else.
for a general election.
Yeah, but she can't get that. She's not going to get anything.
So there's going to be lots of nagging stuff that Rishi Sunak's going to have to deal with.
And then there's also...
And Coffee's not going to be doing it for him, I'm telling you.
True.
She's not going to be sorting out Ukraine in the background.
She's not going to do any of that stuff. But she won't even be deputy prime minister. She won't be deputy. No, there's no way. That's one position that will definitely change. I think that Dominic Raab might go back into that position.
Potentially,
or Dominic Raab might go into the position of Attorney General. And the reason for that is they've got to deal with the migrant crisis. And that's a legal problem.
Right.
Okay, so they need to deal with that. So all of this stuff has to be dealt with. They can't just sort of keep pushing it back.
I guess the other thing...
He has got to have a really good team around him.
Yeah, and the other thing to think of is now that we know who the Prime Minister is, what's Labour thinking? Or what are the opposition? We can talk about all the parties.
Agreed. That is an interesting question, purely because Labour, and this is just my view, Labour has got a 30-point lead without doing anything. When they came out of the Labour Party conference, there was hardly a difference. They're almost equal in terms of popularity, the Tories and the Labour Party. Without doing anything, Labour have got a 30-point lead in the polls. I think
Labour's unhappy.
I think Labour.
I know they're unhappy in general because they've been unhappy for 12 years.
Yeah.
But I think they're unhappy with this choice of Prime Minister, because I think if there's any choice of Prime Minister that would make their life a little bit harder than they wanted, it would probably be Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
If there's any guy who is going to get elected, or girl, if there's any person that's going to be elected from the Conservative Party to be the new Prime Minister, with them being in such a bad situation, this is the guy who may actually be able to beat Keir Starmer in the general election, provided he goes well for him.
Yeah. Provided he succeeds. Having said that, I think every supporter of Labour Party was desperate for Boris Johnson to come back.
Because he's guaranteed to lose the general election.
Yeah, he's guaranteed to get thrown out of Parliament.
But Rishi Sunak, if he actually steps up, I think people weirdly will embrace him.
Well, that's a good point. We're going back to that first question you asked about will the nation embrace Brexit. Just before I mention what my thoughts on that, Penny Mordaunt, when she had to face Keir Starmer, I thought she was really good. A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
She was very good.
She's a good orator, actually.
Yeah, she's very good at sort of giving as good as she gets. Yeah. She was. brilliant when she actually had to face Keir Starmer last Monday. And I genuinely think Labour were literally sitting there, fingers and toes crossed, praying that Boris was going to make his comeback. And now I think they have a problem. And I think that one of the other things they're going to be looking at is what is the front bench of the Conservatives going to look like? Because if they suddenly go, if Rishi does one thing that Liz Truss does not do, the one thing that Liz Truss really screwed up on was she only put her mates in the cabinet. If Rishi Sunak decides, right, I'm just going to get the best people for the job and I've just got to handle them, all of a sudden, it's not going to be like and like. The front bench of the Labour Party are really going to have to up their game to actually, every time they deal with any topic.
Yeah, it depends really who it is. I mean, let's think of the Conservative all-star team. It's going to be Rishi Sunak, probably Penny Mordaunt somewhere as a deputy PM. Then you've got Jeremy Hunt, we know is not going to move.
Grant Shapps,
who's an army man,
and
G.I. Joe.
But Ben Wallace will be in defence,
and Coffee as the star player.
No, Coffee's not going to be there.
She's going to be the super sub.
I don't think she's going to be there. I think
she's going to be Phil Foden.
What is
playing out on the left there,
in the hope of getting the ball. No, I think I think it would be really interesting to see if he brings in any of the old grandees. A good example is Ian Duncan Smith at pensions. So one of the things that Ian Duncan Smith introduced, I think it was under Cameron and then under May, he introduced the universal credit, which at the time was being hammered by everybody, but everybody knew it was the right thing to do. You know, when you know it's the right thing to do, but you got to say it's wrong because it's the other side. And when you think about the issue of benefits and what's going to be happening with the disabled payments, payments for the disabled, etc., they need to have a heavyweight manage all of that stuff.
They've got to run it a bit closely though, because they've got to be careful of running into the Labour policy. So they need to show that their policy is a little bit different.
I don't think they'll
actually
care.
You know what? That is a fair point, because very, very likely that they could do what they want and slowly migrate towards the centre line for the general election. At which point Labour will not be able to suggest much different to them, because they'll say, well, you're running the centre line anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
We've got to have crazy policies like Corbyn came out with. And then people say, well, that's not realistic. We can't vote for Labour again.
Absolutely.
So Conservatives have done a smart job, actually, running the centre line every time a general election comes up.
Well, Boris...
Because then it really stuffs Labour. They can't sit there and say... the only way Labour can really win in that case is to say, well, you lot are dishonest.
Well, one of the big things that Boris did in the 2019, everybody thinks about Brexit, but what people forget about is that he literally wiped out the Greens because he made the Conservatives more green than the Greens. So the Conservative Party can do that stuff and commit to it and actually deliver it. The question is, will Sunak be able to do it?
Yeah.
You know,
and also, will the weight of trashing the nation for 12 years build up? Because every time they take the centre line towards the general election, there's just another 10 points of why they shouldn't be there. Yeah. Because people will remember history more every single time. So I think probably people are just fed up of Conservative prime ministers at this point. And it's going to be hard for Sunak if a general election does come around anyway.
But he can't come around for 2 years. You're looking at 2025.
He's going to have to try and hang on. Probably till 2024 if he's brave.
It's actually 2025. It's February 2025 is the last date.
Yeah, but I think if he's brave, 2024.
Yeah, I agree. 2024 is when.
And if it goes really well, then probably early 2024. But I don't see him going 2023.
No, not next year.
I think if it doesn't work out, and they become a poison party again,
they'll have no option. But
there'll be riots. Yeah. There'll honestly be riots in the street. If they really try and hang on for I think 2025 there'll probably be riots even if he hangs on, because I think people.
Why is he going there so long?
3 hours. 3 hours. 3 years. 3 years. Not our podcast is 3 hours. 3 years of Sunak. Even if he's a good prime minister, I think
they won't. He needs to be elected. That's
like full 5 years of Conservative government.
Well, you think some governments don't even last 3 years. May's government didn't last 3 years.
Yeah.
It barely lasted 3 years.
And some governments don't last 6 weeks.
True, Liz Truss.
Truss.
So I think that everything is now the ball's in his court. If you actually think about it, and the stakes are probably have never been higher at a national level, as well as at
in terms of
political level.
even in terms of real world,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of the real world things that can happen as a result of his decision making from this point forward, is very sensitive. You've got to be really careful to make the right decision. So he's probably in a much harder position than he ever wanted to be in, and I hope he's not just taking the job because he wants to be prime minister one day, and he wants like a book deal and all this sort of stuff and 150k a year.
Well, he doesn't need that money. Actually, I'll tell you one of the strange things. I don't know if you heard this thing about Theresa May was paid 300 grand in America to give a speech.
Yeah, of course she was.
All right. Sunak doesn't need the money.
He doesn't need the money.
He doesn't need the money, and in some respects, because he doesn't need the money, he's not that sort of person. I think he's actually in it because he believes he's better than the rest. He's
you know
not
what's
in it
interesting?
because
You say that, but actually the people who don't need the money are still the people who go after the money. You'd never
That's
think,
correct,
you know,
yeah.
all these people who get all these Hillary Clintons and whatnot.
Yeah,
Did Hillary Clinton? How much is she worth? Did she need to
Well,
go
she's-
do their speeches
but
to
she's
Goldman
wor-
Sachs for
yeah,
300k?
yeah, that's true. She didn't need to do that, but she's not in the same sort of league as
Yes,
Sunak.
she is. She's married
No.
to Bill Clinton.
He's not as rich as he's not into the many hundreds of millions before he's even
Yeah,
become
but
prime minister.
There's
or the president.
for every million you earn, there's a marginal increase in your quality of life. There's a law of diminishing returns.
Yeah,
You're just sitting there with money in your account at the end of the day. What are you going to do?
yeah.
You're not getting anything out of this. You know, your private jet became 2 foot longer.
We have a
Sunak may benefit from that because he's quite a tall guy, but he may benefit from the footroom. But generally, for every extra million you
I
earn,
get the impression he's quite short.
no, he's quite tall. He's quite
Really?
tall. Yeah, actually,
I
you
think
know
he's-
what?
I think he's quite short.
Now that you say it, he walked past Matt Hancock today, and Matt Hancock really sad because he was totally ignored. But yeah, you're right. Maybe he's shorter. Maybe to me, just because he's quite skinny, I thought he was tall.
Yeah. I think it's because you tend to see him on stage.
He's on the lectern. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, he's on stage.
I bet the lectern's about 2 foot tall, and he just looks like a
He's got a
giant.
special one that's slightly smaller, so
Yeah,
it makes him
it's all
look big.
it's all perspective at the end of the day.
Yeah. He's a bit like Sylvester Stallone. He used to wear these.
He's got heels in his shoes, hidden heels.
To make
Yeah.
himself look a bit taller. So says William Goldman, by the way. That's from the William Goldman novel. Not novel, his biography. Anyway.
Anyway, so as we've established, Danny DeVito's our new prime minister.
Yeah, do you think... Okay, the question that you asked... Remember I answered the second question first. The first question was, will the country embrace a British Asian prime minister? What do you think?
I don't think the UK is racist.
Oh, no, I don't.
I don't think they're racist. I think it's all going to be determined by how much do we feel the crunch of his policies. And people are already feeling it. People are already feeling what the situation is.
Yeah.
And it's been for a long time. You know, I see so many people on a daily basis, my benefits, I need my benefits. There's no way for me to get a job. Or, you know, I can't feed my kids. I have to cut a meal out of my daily meals because I can't afford it. Or I'm buying cheaper food. This is becoming
bad. Yeah,
people are living the daily living is becoming much harder.
Yeah, and
Before
even business is hard as well.
Yeah.
Business is really hard. I mean, the
you know,
business
during
people I talk to-
during Corona it was more like your freedoms are restricted and you can't do the things you like to do when you want to do them.
That's true.
But your daily living, it was just the social circle that had been cut out, really.
Yeah.
Now it's like you can't afford your daily living.
Yeah.
And that's what's
very
hard.
bad. It's
You know,
very
my
hard.
mortgage price has gone up, the price of petrol has gone up, electricity's costing more. This is all really hard stuff for people. And I think if people continue to feel that, or it gets worse, then he's going to be in a really bad position.
I think the biggest problem he has is being able to demonstrate to people that he's actually working on their side. If I give you one example, that shows the total stupidity of Liz Truss, actually, and her cohorts. They're pouring billions of pounds into keeping electricity bills down. But most people are going to see their bills go up slightly, maybe even a lot.
Yeah.
And they're not going to see on their bill how much the government has contributed towards keeping it where it is, keeping it to that level.
And there's
That's
a
just
public
totally
perception
stupid.
of your policies as well, which is really important. Like Liz Truss, she tied her own noose when she said that we're going to give a tax break to people who earn,
Yeah, she saw
above
nothing
100.
wrong with giving that. I
This
mean, it's
is
just ridiculous.
the idea that she was trying to get away with that. She was really
Yeah.
just, kicking the stool out from under her feet.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
really, Sunak has to really avoid that. He needs to keep the public perception on his side that he's working in their best interests.
Absolutely.
And rich people know they'll be fine. Rich people know that they will be fine. So the key for Sunak is keep the public on your side. You can be honest with them and say you're going to make cuts where you need to make cuts.
Agreed.
And you need to tell them and be realistic with them as to how hard things are going to get. And if things start to get harder than you let on, then you're in trouble, because that's when people will start turning on you, and they'll start saying things like, "Well, you're no better than anyone who came before you."
That's right. I think one of the things that he needs to really keep on top of, because of the struggles that are going to happen over and all the strikes and everything, he needs to be able to let people have some mechanism of seeing that they're being helped when money is going into things. Because otherwise it's all hidden away and people think, the rich are getting all the benefits and I'm not getting anything.
Yeah. And that's a symptom of being a Conservative Party member. When you're in the Conservative Party, the general public think that you are on the side of the rich people, which they are. But you need to show that you still care about people on the bottom rung of the ladder, sadly. And it's hard to strike that balance when you're a Conservative Party MP, because you are trying to grow the economy and you are trying to make cuts at the same time, and people will suffer. And you have to understand that just because you know what you think you know what you're doing, people will not understand that from outside a boardroom. People will not understand that from outside a meeting room. So there is an onus on you to explain to people who will not understand.
I have a theory about whether people embrace him or not. I think people in England in Britain will embrace him if he can demonstrate the right type of humour at the right moment.
He'll never be able to do that.
If
He's a robot. He's a robot. His AI won't allow him to do that.
It's someone. I tell you, he came across. The worst thing is, during the hustings, when I was watching the hustings, he came across as a really nice guy.
He was personable.
Yeah, but he needs to come out of his straitjacket a little bit. But having said that, he can't do that right now because it's so serious, the situation. You can't suddenly crack a joke or anything. However, he's got to work towards getting to an environment where he can relax a bit and come out with the right type of joke at the right time that doesn't affect, that not necessarily doesn't offend anybody. But I heard something the other day that I thought was quite funny. So he's a MP in a constituency called Richmond in Yorkshire.
Yeah, fake Richmond.
Yeah,
see what he did there? He went for the fake Richmond. People,
not the Richmond in London.
I bet he introduces himself as I'm the MP for Richmond, and then stops there.
People think he's next to Hampton Court Palace.
Yeah. I went to Oxford, Brooks.
No, so anyway, it's a constituency. It's quite in the northern part of Yorkshire, as far as I'm aware. But it's a huge area.
And he's from Southampton.
I know.
If ever there was a man who knew how to play the game, he just went to somewhere where he could win.
Well, he went, yeah, exactly. Well, why not?
It's not that he cares about his people. He's not staying at home and representing his people.
Yeah,
he just said, "How do I get a seat?"
Yeah,
and he just went
and he got the perfect seat. He got William Hague's seat.
Yeah.
Okay. However, in that area, there are very few Asian black people. And there was a guy talking about meeting him, and he said what he liked was that Sunak gave a speech in which he kind of said, "I am the diversity person. I am the diversity
community card."
No, he basically said, "Yes, we have to be diverse, and I know I'm the only one here, basically, who is
right.
Yeah,
I'm the only one here.
Diversity. Yeah, I am the diversity community." indicating that he understands there's hardly anybody there that is brown or black.
My name is Khan.
And
It's like
yeah,
the Shah Rukh Khan.
yeah.
My name is Khan. Yeah.
So basically he, and that was remembered. The way he cracked that joke and the way he was warm. So he's got to find a way of introducing that during his prime ministership. If he can do that, I think he will be. He will bring people on side who have a problem with the fact that, and there are people they're refusing to accept his English.
Yeah, his English is
He
really
is-
good.
He is English. He's born in England.
It's the same as the Donald Trump thing with Obama.
Obama, yeah,
Where's
exactly.
your birth certificate and all
It's
that
always
sort of
nonsense.
stuff.
So I think that that will be a challenge later on, especially as they get towards an election. Or
I think he's lucky that the non-dom thing is done.
It's gone done dusted, yeah.
Because if that happened while he was prime minister,
That would be a nightmare.
I think the
and the
country
green
would
card
have
thing has
issues.
been done and dusted as well.
I think the country would have issues, and I think Labour has to be very careful to not try and resurface that because they're going to be seen as the complainer party again if they bring it up, and I bet they bring it up in the first debate.
They've already started.
I already know. And you know what's sad is that Keir Starmer can make mincemeat of this guy.
If he does it properly.
He knows he's a very good orator. He knows how to argue. He knows how to do prime minister questions. We've been doing it for a really long time now. He really can make mincemeat of Sunak if he wants to. But he's got to be really careful that the writers around him don't just go back to talk about his wife and talk about the non-dom status and talk about the fact that you're all failures and all this sort of stuff. They've got to be really careful not to just...
If he's always being pushed as Richie Rich, that I think ultimately will count against him. Because I think because he is so rich, he doesn't care if you actually tax the rich.
Yeah.
Yeah? He of all the people
but he's also got
who will not care about it, he is one of those people.
Yeah, and like we talked about in the last episode, he's got quite a grounded background. Like the story is quite grounded.
It's very good
even
story.
though he's super rich now, it doesn't sound like
We're talking
he's
about
come
somebody from a humble background.
Yeah, he's not come from what his wife has come from.
Yeah, exactly. Completely the opposite.
He can argue that actually he's just successful.
Exactly.
It's not that he was given a silver spoon.
And I think that will appeal to a hell of a lot of people.
Yeah. And Starmer can say that. Starmer can kind of argue that he wasn't given a silver spoon either. People don't think of him as some guy who's just been rich his whole life and all this sort of stuff. Starmer's a successful guy too, but they need to be very careful that they don't paint Sunak as a guy who's been given a silver spoon, because he could easily come out and say, "Well, I am non-white. I have to deal with all these other issues that other people haven't had to deal with. I have been right every step of the way."
Yeah,
which he hasn't been every step of the way, but most of the parts of the way he's been right.
Yeah, he's been successful in all the right ways.
You, as the opposition, also agree with my economic policy. So what are you talking about? And I'm far more successful than anyone else in the opposing bench.
I think it's going to be really interesting. I think in Britain, ultimately, the vast majority of people will not care what colour he is if he is a successful prime minister.
Yeah. In the weirdest way, there's a parallel. Kanye West came out and did a ridiculous interview with Piers Morgan. And Piers Morgan was giving him some advice, and Kanye West said, he said something along the lines of, "Who makes more money, Piers, me or you?" And Piers was like, "Well, you do." He goes, "So why would I take advice from you?" So it's the same thing Sunak could say to everyone else in the other bench.
No.
Which is, who is more successful, me or you? And if they say, "Well, you are," so why the hell would I listen to you guys?
Yeah, but this is the difference. Just because you're rich doesn't mean to say you don't listen. And I think Sunak understands
He listens. He absolutely listens, but he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to do what they say. He doesn't have to do what they say.
He does listen. He does. I think that is one thing that is a fair statement about him. He does listen.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see how he does over the next. Well, to be honest, he's got a tough 2-3 weeks. Forget about months.
I think we should probably follow it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
Yeah, we'll give it a go.
We'll see how he goes.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see, especially with the announcement, the budget, and all that sort of stuff. I think we'll see where things.
I tell you what's going to be really interesting: his cabinet. Can you imagine?
You know what?
Really
you know what's more interesting to me is I just want to see what he's like when, in November, December time, all he gets is questions about the World Cup. Because I can't see him as someone who really looks like a football supporter.
Yeah, but can you?
Boris, you see, Boris, he's very nationalistic.
Yeah. He loves England. He loves England.
Yeah, so
he
Boris could say like we need to support our lads and all that sort of stuff. Even though no one knows, everyone knows he doesn't care about football that much.
Yeah.
But
he was saying,
Boris played in he played in the charity football match and all that sort of stuff, and rugby tackled someone.
Yeah.
But I can't see Rishi at any point standing on the thing saying, "Well done, lads."
No, I think he'll say it.
He'll say it in robotics too.
Oh God, no! I hope he doesn't do that.
Well done, Gareth Southgate and the England football team.
Yeah, I think he will. Yeah, I think that. Boris. The thing about Boris that was so good and what makes him connect with so many people. Do you remember at the end of the 2012 Olympics when he got all the athletes came to London, and David Cameron gave his speech to them all. And then Boris came on afterwards, and he totally blew Cameron away with his speech. And one of the things he started talking about all the different he talked about all the different sports that England had got gold medals, or Britain had got gold medals in. And then he came to whiff waff, ping pong, and he actually started saying, "Well, that's what it used to be called in the old days."
That's what it used to be called, yeah. I just can't see Rishi.
He's not that
Rishi
sort of
Sunak,
person.
if he comes out and he goes, "Bring it home, guys."
Yeah, no, it's not going to be the same.
It's really not going to.
You know what the big thing's going to be? We've got T20 World Cup. I mean, yesterday India-Pakistan was a fantastic game. Can you imagine? And India and England are on.
Is he going to
parts.
support India?
No. Well, what's going to happen is...
I feel like there's expectation.
Can you imagine? Because they're on the opposite sides of the draw. So can you imagine if India play England in the final of the T20?
He has to support England, doesn't he?
He is going to support England. There's no doubt about it.
His wife's Indian.
Yeah, but his wife will support India and he'll support England, just like we do at home.
I wonder what the answer is going to be when people say, "Do you support India or England when your wife's Indian?"
They're going to be hammering him all the time. He's going to be... You wait.
He says, "I support whoever my father-in-law supports." My trust fund's going to get cut off.
No, I think that particular moment, you'll see how the Labour Party react to him. Did you hear about Rupa Huq and what she said to Kwasi Kwarteng?
No, what did she
say? She called him a white dude in a black skin.
That's a bit racist, isn't it?
Oh, extremely racist. And she's more or less got away with it. She was suspended. She said, "I'm sorry," and then they brought her back in. It's like silly, So there is and I know that when Johnson actually put his when he came into power in 2019, the ethnic minority MPs who were actually part of his cabinet, all of them took a hell of a lot of crap based on the colour of their skin from the Labour Party. So there is an undercurrent of racism within the party, within the Labour Party, that comes out when they are losing or when they can't do something. It's almost like a reaction because they want to get. It's a bit like they want to get a reaction from the person. He doesn't say anything, so they end up saying something like that.
That's it. Yeah.
And I think we might end up seeing that in the House of Commons. It would not surprise me if we find Labour MPs doing that in the House of Commons.
Yeah, I think they've got to be really careful because all they need to do, which this is a problem. Everyone knows what you need to do to win politics, and for some reason these politicians just can't do it.
And what is that?
All you need to do is be a sensible human being and just say the facts as they are. That's really you have to do because there's no government that's not failing.
Yeah,
as soon as
every government is failing.
Every government is failing. There's no government that comes out in a better position than they were in before. We always come out in more debt.
Exactly.
Something is worse. Public sector's worse. You made cuts here so that you can make improvements there. Really, you're just balancing the same budget in different fashions.
Yeah, just a bigger budget, but you're still trying to balance the blooming
Exactly,
thing.
But the problem is, and this is a prime example, I'll give you an example from last week. Question time. This Labour MP, Jess Phillips, right? So
Birmingham MP, yeah.
Birmingham MP. She comes on Question Time. It's the best time to ever be a Labour Party MP.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing you can say that
Liz
will actually...
Truss has just resigned.
Yeah.
The guy opposite you, Conservative Party MP, has got no time to figure out what he even thinks about the situation.
Exactly.
You just need to sit there and go, this government cannot handle itself.
Yeah. It's a very simple statement.
She doesn't even give the time. Like, the guy's going to capitulate if he's forced to think. If he's given time to talk on his own, he's going to capitulate.
Yeah, he will.
What does she do? She tries to interrupt him every 5 seconds.
I know, it's so stupid.
And a member of the audience says, "Can you please stop trying to interrupt each other every 5 seconds and make smirky comments at each other. We just want to know what's happening with our country.
Yeah.
What does she do? She starts cutting them off again every 5 seconds. And then she has to apologise for it and say, I'm going to be really good and not cut him off. And then she starts cutting him off again.
That's terrible. That's terrible. No, but stuff like that will help the Labour Party
This whole
lose.
thing, so this is the whole thing. They come on the Question Times and all these sorts of things, and they get really emotional about everything. Oh, we know my people are suffering, and I can't believe that these people have the right to go out and make decisions, and they should be ashamed of themselves and all that sort of stuff. How about you just go out and you say, his economic policy doesn't make sense. I think we should do this, and I think people will benefit from that.
Yeah. The problem, that having said that, that's a clever answer. There's only one problem with what you just said. Every time Labour have been asked, what would you do?
They haven't got an economic policy.
They've always given the same answer. They've got a stock answer. We will tell you when there is a general election.
I know. So
which
ridiculous.
means they don't have an answer. They don't have an answer.
How about you just say what you would do, and if you're right, then congratulations.
Yeah.
If the Conservative Party start following your plan, you can say, look, we put that plan out in November. You started following it in December.
Exactly.
And look where we would have been if you started a month earlier.
Yeah. In fact,
just have some balls.
Keir Starmer gave a speech at the TUC last week because when Liz Truss actually resigned, there was a big TUC conference, okay, and it was all the trade unions, okay, trade union conference, and he gave a speech, and he was trying to take credit. He was trying to get the unions to take credit for the furlough scheme in the UK. It's like, what?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Rishi Sunak actually talked to lots of people before he put that furlough scheme together, and I think this is one of the things that I think about when I think about how Rishi Sunak may go forward. He did talk to the unions. He talked to everybody before he put his ideas down and decided what to do. Just because you talk to the guy doesn't mean to say that whatever comes out of it is all your good work and nobody else's.
I really want to see just a 20-minute, I don't know, 1-to-1 of Rishi Sunak talking to Mick Lynch. I don't know if you know who Mick Lynch
I don't know
is.
him.
So Mick Lynch is the guy who's representing the train workers at the moment.
Right.
And he has been putting everyone in their place for the last 8 months.
Yeah.
Like he's someone who really knows what he's talking about.
Of course he does. He's in
and
charge
he
of all this.
really knows how to give it back to someone.
All right.
So
Okay.
if you look at, you should watch him against the Select Committee. But
Select committee, what the House of Commons.
So there's a Select Committee meeting where they were talking about what we're doing to resolve these problems
On the trains.
and he was giving it back hard to everyone.
Really?
It was really impressive. So anyway, I'm not going to delve into that too much.
I think the one thing that just to finish off, Liz Truss refused to have an interview with Andrew Neil. She actually refused. I think that Rishi Sunak will not refuse.
Yeah, he'll just send his robot.
He'll
send his body double.
That will cause a problem for Keir Starmer.
It depends how well it goes.
No, I think that it's going to be. It doesn't matter how well it goes. Keir Starmer. I mean, we know Andrew Neil. He when he does an interview, it's just unbelievable.
He gives it large. But at the same time, they can vet the questions.
No, they can't. No,
they can.
No, they don't.
It's only if he does it live.
I don't think he does that.
Now Andrew Neil's on his own radio station.
Spectator, isn't he?
Now he's on the radio station rather than always being live.
He's on Channel 4 TV now.
I know, but there's definitely a way that they can try and make it so that all the questions are vetted. Remember, we had the leadership debate in the last election.
Yeah, but Boris
vetting the questions.
Yeah, but Boris. No, we didn't vet the questions. Boris refused to have the interview.
Yeah, well,
everybody else had, because Boris knew he was going to get torn apart. So he just said, "What's the point?" Liz Truss was so arrogant. She thought, "Oh well, Boris didn't have an interview. Why should I?" It meant that there was no real.
You got to be careful because Andrew Neil's a very powerful man. If he comes out and says, "I don't think you're going to survive 6 weeks," Liz Truss is not going to survive 6 weeks. He literally did that.
Yeah, no,
so
that's
if you're going to avoid an interview with him, he might just come out and say, "Well, I don't think you're going to survive then."
I know.
So, yeah, I think we've talked about.
We're interesting times.
Yeah, I think we've talked about as much as we're going to talk about today.
Exactly.
I think let's give Rishi, my best friend Rishi, let's give Sunak the benefit of 48 hours to figure out what he's actually doing. He can try not to kill King Charles. And we'll probably follow up on this in a week or two once we know more about what's going on, who's in the cabinet. That'll be interesting to see. Maybe we'll analyse whether these people are actually fit for purpose, and what Labour's going to do. So thanks for listening, guys. It's a whole new world.
It is.
Or it's wallpaper over old wallpaper. We'll find out. We'll find out soon enough. And this was the House of Commentary. If you like what we're doing, like, comment, subscribe, and see you in the next one.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.